Good evening for those of you who can join me live tonight. It is the 29th of June. It happens to be the exact time when England are playing in their quarterfinals, I believe, football Euros. So, but that doesn't mean we're all into football. And so lovely if you can join me live tonight, or you may be watching this on catch up or as my podcast or on my YouTube channel. So thank you for watching. So it's the start of summer now, and not every day, but of course we're getting hotter and warmer days. We may be outside more, we may be exercising more, we may be sweating more. I thought it'd be a good time to talk about water in particular, not just hydration, but water. We tend to believe that we should drink more water. It can be very confusing to know just how much we should be drinking. Do we really need water per se? Is it the water that we need? What about all the other drinks that we tend to consume on a day-to-day basis? We tend to think we should be drinking more, but I want to show you that actually it's not always about more. And sometimes, and I do see this occasionally with clients, they can be drinking too much, and that sometimes this can be really, really dangerous. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Now, water, why do we need it? Well, we need fluid. We need a fluid intake to keep us alive at the end of the day. We need it to function. Our body is about 60% water. We find it in all our cells and our tissues, in our blood, in our lymph fluid, in our tears, in our saliva, in our digestive secretions. We find it in our synovial joints, the joints, the fluid in our joints that keeps them cushioned and keeps them moving really, really well. So every activity, whether it's respiration and perspiration, every cellular activity in the body, we need water to be able to function. And so, you know, we won't be alive if we just don't drink fluid every single day. But as I'll go on to say, it doesn't have to be just about pure water. So we're using this for healthy bowel movements. So constipation, when I see a client who is constipated, one of the first things I'm going to look about is how much water do they drink. The reason why water intake is relevant to constipation is that the body detects that it's short on fluid. If it feels dehydrated, it's going to excrete water from the colon, from those stools, and it's going to make the stools harder and make them harder to move. So constipation can be directly linked to dehydration. There are other factors as well. It's needed for healthy detoxification. So as I said, you know, the body's producing toxins in the cells. Those toxins have to pass back into the lymphatic system. They get passed into the back into the bloodstream, go to the liver, and they're then passed out, these toxins, as waste. They're passed out through our urine, in perspiration, through breathing, or through the bowel movements. And of course, through the entire process, we're going to need water and fluid to be able to do that. It's needed for healthy and regular good blood pressure. Now, it's easy to think that we may, it's always that we have too little or too much. Now, one of the signs of being really dehydrated is it can make our blood pressure drop dramatically, and that's really dangerous. But the same thing can happen the other way as well. So it's really important for helping to keep our blood pressure stable is to be looking at how much fluid we're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And as I said, with digestion as well. So stomach acid, really important for digestion. Our digestive enzymes, they're going to be secreted in fluid. Saliva contains a digestive enzyme called salivary amylase. The whole mucosal lining of the gut and mucus is all linked to needing fluid to be functioning well. And in fact, how much fluid do we need when we're eating a meal? It's changed over the years, but the most common thing I like to refer to now these days is the fact that in Chinese medicine, they talk about the stomach having a sort of soupy consistency. So depending on the type of meal that you're eating, whether it's a very dry meal, obviously if it's a soup itself, you may not need much fluid, but we do need a little bit of fluid intake when we're drinking. Not too much to dilute our digestive secretions, but we should drink a little bit of fluid with a meal. So some common signs of dehydration, first of all. So constipation, I've talked about. Tiredness, headaches can be linked to dehydration. Poor concentration. The brain has an even higher percentage of fluid than the rest of the body. On the whole, the body is 60% fluid, but the brain could be 75% fluid. So poor concentration could be linked to being dehydrated. Sore joints, like I said, synovial fluid contains a lot of fluid in the joints, so sore joints may be due to dehydration. UTIs, urinary tract infections, could be due to dehydration. And a surprising one for some people, but don't overlook this, but actually not so much weight gain, but actually difficulty losing weight. If you've been on a diet and you're struggling to lose weight, then have a look at your hydration levels, because if the cells in the body, and this is a very naturopathic approach and term, but if the cells in the body, if the body becomes dehydrated and the cell detects it's dehydrated, like we link it to constipation, then the cells themselves will become hardened, and it makes it much harder for toxins and the breakdown of fats that we're trying to get rid of to be released and taken out of the cells. So we do say that dehydration can be linked and can be partially a cause of an inability to lose weight, so don't overlook that. Now, the thirst signal, I just want to briefly mention this. We tend to overlook the thirst signal. We don't pay enough attention to it, and we can forget about it, and the body can sort of almost lose this thirst signal, and it can become very confused with being hungry. So don't always think we're hungry. First of all, wonder and try out and see if you're actually thirsty and you're dehydrated, because a lot of us completely ignore this thirst signal, and it tends to just be replaced with a hunger signal. Again, this could be linked to weight gain over the years. Elderly people in particular tend to be very dehydrated and do not recognize this thirst signal, because I think we do lose it more and more as we get older. So if you feel a little bit hungry, maybe start trying to drink a little glass of water first of all, and just to see what effect that has on your hunger. Now, what about if you're drinking too much? This can be really dangerous to the body. We tend to think we don't drink enough, but it can be equally as dangerous, if not more dangerous, really dangerous, to be drinking too much fluid. In terms of too much fluid, I'm talking about drinking, say, 2, 3, 4 litres of water in an hour. Probably more towards the 3-4 litres, like in a really quick period of time, when you're not also eating or consuming electrolytes, those salts alongside that. And the reason why this happens is that this can cause sodium to be released from our cells, because bear in mind our blood pressure is very closely linked to our sodium, our salt levels, our electrolyte balance. Salts are released from our cells. Water flushes into our cells. It's so dangerous. Actually, it can cause death. I don't want to alarm you, but I just want you to be aware it's not always about drinking more fluid. Yes, we need fluid and we need it throughout the day, but do not think, especially when you're exercising, that you must just down huge quantities of fluid in one go, 3-4 litres, especially if you don't add some electrolytes to it. So that's really important to bear in mind. Now, as I said, for more commonly, we're going to be dehydrated. And one thing to look at is the colour of your urine. Now, first thing in the morning, you've not possibly been to the toilet all night, you're not drinking through the night. So first thing in the morning, the chances are that your urine is going to be quite a dark colour. But throughout the day, when you start to be drinking throughout the day, and of course we do contain some water and fluid in our meals, in our vegetables and in our fruit, but it should be a sort of pale yellow colour. That's what you should be aiming for. So just have a look at time to time and just see that is your urine a really dark colour, because that is actually a really good sign of that you're not consuming enough fluid. Now, how much fluid do I need? Now, the average person probably only needs about 2 litres of fluid a day. And this is why I say some people seem to think they should be drinking more. And note that I say fluid. I'm not yet talking about water intake. I'm talking about fluid. If you happen to be a very inactive and a very small, light female, you may actually only need 1.5 litres of fluid a day. If you happen to be much taller, much bigger, more moderately active person, then you're going to be needing 2.5, maybe 3 litres of fluid a day. It depends how active you are. If you're going to be, getting into more competitive exercise, running long distances, then this guidance isn't necessarily the one you should be reading. You need to look more into it. But if you do exercise, this is where it's important, and you're drinking a lot of fluid, to add some electrolytes. You may even only need a pinch of Himalayan salts, and this is a really good thing to do on a very hot day if you're sweating a lot, if you're sunbathing, if you're out walking or running in the heat, is to add electrolytes to your water so that you don't get into the danger signs of upsetting our very precious electrolyte salt balance in the body. So 1.5 to 2 litres, probably 2 litres for most of us. That's what we should be aiming for. And the more intensive exercise you do, you may need another 0.5 litre, you may need another litre, but certainly not in one go. This is from the start of the day to the end of the day in totality. And note that I'm talking about fluid here, I'm not talking about water. So is it just about water? No, it's about hydrating fluids. The most hydrating fluids are going to be water or herbal and fruit teas. These do count. You could be adding lemon to water. You could be having a herbal tea bag. These do count. It could be rhubarb tea or other herbal teas. These are great hydrating fluids that you can drink. So people who say to me they really do not like the taste of water, they struggle to drink it, it's really important to look at going out and finding different types of herbal or fruit teas, or indeed having very diluted cordial drinks, watch the sugar intake, or very, very, very diluted fruit juice, maybe 1/5 fruit juice to 4/5 water. Again, you need to be watching the sugar intake with these. I'm not a fan of low sugar cordials. I'm not a fan of artificial sweeteners, because that's another topic I have covered. So try to aim for flavoured waters if you don't like water, adding lemon, mint, cucumber, orange, or trying some herbal teas. It could be hot water, it doesn't have to be cold water, and it can be these other sorts of hydrating fluid. Do not feel it has to be pure water. That's not true. And equally, it's really important to understand that whilst I am not promoting that you spend your whole day drinking tea and coffee, because I don't think it's going to make you feel brilliant by doing that, and I'll just explain briefly why that's the case. But at the end of the day, tea and coffee are water, but of course they have added additional things added to it. They are no longer classified as dehydrating. So we tend to think of tea and coffee as dehydrating. They're not classified as dehydrating fluids, but they do have a slight diuretic effect. They may result in you want to go to the toilet. I know that happens to me. If I drink a cup of coffee, I'm more likely to want to go to the toilet soon afterwards. I won't want to get in the car on a long journey when I've just had a cup of coffee. So they have a mild diuretic effect, and you may lose a little bit of extra sodium, but they are no longer classified as dehydrating. However, when it comes to tea and coffee, pure normal tea and coffee, they are a stimulant. And what that means is they stimulate the adrenal glands. They have a stress response. They cause the release of adrenaline. And in turn, this has a knock-on effect in creating this stress response in the body. So you don't want that to be happening frequently throughout the day either. A little bit in tea and coffee, 1, 2, 3 cups a day, I consider to be the maximum intake, and that's okay. Decaffeinated, I'm not a fan of those either, and I know some people do that because they don't have the caffeine, they don't have the stimulant effect, but do bear in mind they do have other chemicals. They still have theobromine, they still have other chemicals that are used in the removal of the caffeine from that process. So, again, if you want to have decaffeinated drinks, that's fine, but I'd still keep it to the minimum in terms of that 2, 3, maximum of 4 cups a day. But your overall fluid intake needs to be this 2 litre, maybe 2.5, maybe only 1.5 if you are an inactive and very slight small female, because 1.5 litres may be sufficient for you. But do check the colour of your urine, because that is a really, really good sign. And do bear in mind those other signs of dehydration that I mentioned, like headaches and constipation. It can link to blood pressure irregularities and tiredness. So first and foremost, just have a look at your fluid intake. Maybe you do need to up it a bit more, but it's very, very important that you also drink in small amounts, in moderation, my famous word, throughout the day. You're not consuming huge quantities in one go. And never, ever, ever think that you've done some exercise or you've not drunk all day and ever be tempted to go and drink, say, 2, 3, 4 litres of fluid in one go, because it's very, very dangerous to do that. So I hope you found that useful today. Lovely if you've joined me live tonight when the football's on, and maybe you're watching this on catch up or on my YouTube channel or as my podcast. Remember, I have my podcasts on my website, Peyton Principles, and my videos from my lives are all on my YouTube channel, Peyton Principles Natural Health. Please come across and subscribe to that, and that way you'll get notified of every release of all my videos that tend to go on almost on a weekly basis. Thanks for watching tonight. Have a great week and take care, and catch up with you next Tuesday. Bye.